Our episode begins with Lies in a carriage on a dangerous journey down a mountain until an accident happens. A knight tries to hold Lies back so she doesn't get hurt. The coachman shouts that they are monsters. The knight asks Lies to stay exactly where she is. The knight who is going to fight is Lies' uncle. A monster attacks the carriage trying to catch Lies. But his uncle attacks the creature to free his niece and ends up being attacked by the monster. Unfortunately, after the attack, the monster decides to fly while carrying Lies' uncle in its mouth, but Lies' uncle doesn't let it go and attacks it while they are in the air, and they both fall off a cliff. If you don't want a flying monster to attack you like Lies' uncle did, subscribe to the channel and receive God's blessing. Then Beatrice, Lies, and Allan are in a very peaceful village. Allan asks one of the residents if they are preparing for a festival, and the resident says yes. They called it the Festival of the Spirits. They received the spirits of their ancestors. It was an annual event. It was a custom specific to that village, but basically they dressed up as spirits and danced. It was a very lively festival. Lies asks to be excused and asks if they hadn't seen a person wearing silver armor, as she was aware that it had been seen in that village. The locals hadn't seen the person before and apologized for not being able to help. In the end, for Beatrice they were just rumors. Allan remembers when he was looking for clues, and it seemed that not even the guild had any relevant information. The group didn't even know where to start, something like a suspicious incident or something. The elf thinks about the general who was murdered and says that an adventurer who always shopped there once commented on a ghost that appeared in the village. She seemed to be a ghost of the royal family and was full of hatred for the oppression she suffered from the royal family. The ghost walked among the tombs night after night. Beatrice says that ghosts are garbage, and when she hears a noise, she is startled by a huge scream. The elf asked if Beatrice was afraid of ghosts, and she said that she wouldn't be. She would never be afraid of spirits. After all, they aren't even real. Lies says that they will have to investigate. For Allan, if it is the work of demons, they should consider it possible for them to revive the dead, and Beatrice agrees with him. And the elf and the Amazon ask her again if she's afraid, and Beatrice says that she would never be afraid of that, and the three of them make an absurd racket. Then Allan said that Noel had talked about graves and suggested that they take a look at the village cemetery, and they went there, but there was no sign that anything of the sort would appear. Beatrice was scared to death. Suddenly, they meet the same man as before. And the man takes them to the house of the village leader. When it comes to the village, the leader is the one who knows the most about things. But the man was very strange, and Allan asks what he was doing in the cemetery. The man replies that he was passing by coincidence and saw the group there, so he says goodbye. The man looked very strange. There was no sparkle in his eyes. And then they're having tea with the leader, and he says he's never heard of these rumors. The village was very quiet. The leader says he understands that it's no consolation, but asks if they wouldn't like to spend the night in the house, because the next day there would be the festival, and they could stay and watch. Allan thinks about it and accepts the invitation. The leader is happy and says he'll tidy up the rooms. While Lies slept, she dreamt of her uncle. Lies thought of her uncle as a second father, and having two fathers made her very happy. Her uncle had only stopped by to say hello. He was going to be away for a long time thanks to the expedition. Lies asks him when he'll be back, and he says he'll visit her soon. For Lies' uncle, the most important thing was to believe in people in any situation. This feeling becomes a connection that binds everyone together. And then Lies wakes up after her uncle speaks. She is startled to hear a noise. She decides to get up to check it out, just like in horror movies. Through the window, she sees a man in silver armor, and she sees that it is her uncle and goes to him, who is entering the forest. She asks her uncle to wait. She runs and ends up in the cemetery. Even a hand comes out from under the ground and grabs her leg, and several undead come out to attack her. But it was a dream too. Allan wakes Lies up and asks if she's okay. And Lies simply hugs Allan, who doesn't understand a thing. And Lies asks Allan to let her cuddle with him for a while. Anyway, it's dawn, lots of people show up in costume. Beatrice thinks it's a super weird festival. The townspeople burn a bonfire while in costume and dance in front of the fire. Beatrice finds it strange that they are celebrating, as treating the dead in that nation is taboo. Allan asks, as a royal knight, why she doesn't stop the people from doing that. Beatrice says that the festival isn't causing any problems for anyone, and Allan just laughs at her response while Lise sits quietly watching the people enjoying themselves. Allan doesn't see anything supernatural, although he does find the village suspicious. A man came up behind them asking if they didn't want to dance too, and he had no sparkle in his eyes. Beatrice said she didn't want to, and Lise said she'd like to rest, but she didn't see a problem with Allan and Beatrice having fun. Allan uses his skills to analyze the people and finds nothing wrong. Allan accepts the invitation and decides to go with the guys to dance too, so Beatrice says she'll go with Allan. Lise watches until she sees a trail of smoke passing by and hears someone calling her name, which startles her a little, until she sees her uncle and decides to go after him. He's leaving, and she asks him to wait. Lise tries to get through the crowd and reaches the forest looking for her uncle. She gets tired after running a long way. And again, she sees that trail of smoke and realizes that it's coming from her uncle. Her uncle says that it's dangerous for her to go to a place like that alone. Scared, she said that he was with her, calling him her father. And he says he's already told her that he's her uncle. Lise responds by saying that she thinks of him as a father. She kept wondering where he was all the time. At the time, she searched a lot and couldn't find him. That's why Lise believed he was somewhere alive. The uncle replied that he had always hated the royal family and had gone into hiding so that he could take revenge. Lise's uncle tells her that her father wanted to kill her, which is why he didn't like her brother's behavior at all. Lise can't understand what her uncle is trying to say. The uncle says to listen well. The king was after those who have gifts from birth, natural gifts. Lise is startled. The power to annihilate the dragon, the power to create unparalleled weapons, the power to double the strength of soldiers and bring glory to the nation, the power to identify any gift. And finally, Lise's saintly power. Any one of them can destroy the kingdom. All of them together with Lise are called puppets of the gods. Lise thinks it's absurd, and her uncle agrees with her. The king thinks that those with gifts are rebellious and will bring destruction in the name of the gods, so he has decided to kill all those with gifts. Lise is incredulous at what her uncle is telling her. Lise's uncle says he wants to save her and asks her to go with him because together they could defeat his brother. Lise apologizes to her uncle because she couldn't do that. Even if it's true, she thinks that if they talk, everything could be resolved. And she remembers that her uncle once told her that the most important thing is to always trust people. And the uncle begins to float, saying that he really had said that. And Lise is frightened by it flying away. And her uncle told her not to worry because her corpse wouldn't go to waste. Lise can't believe it. He asks her to calm down and then proceeds to kill her. However, just at that moment, Allan appears, defending the attack with his sword. The uncle tells Allan not to get in his way. But Allan responded by saying that he was the one who was disturbing his peace. Allan tells Lise that he was watching the whole time. The uncle recognizes that Allan was the loser who was Lise's fiancé. Allan hasn't come to chat and tells him to return Alfred immediately. And then he casts an ability to break the magic. Lise asks what Allan did to her uncle. Allan asks Lise to wait. The uncle says he's already dead and asks if he did it. Allan says he undid the magic that was cast on him. And Lise's uncle thanks her. Then Lise's uncle says that he wouldn't forgive him for pointing a gun at Lise. What he had said to her and the fact that he had attacked her was not his choice, nor was it the king's choice, but the demon's. However, it was true that he hated the royal family. He was the king's younger brother, and because he was second in line, many wanted his attention. Some even tried to end the relationship he had with his brother. He hated those shackles of royalty. So he decided to abandon his position and start his life from scratch, becoming vice captain of the First Order of Knights. But Lies was the only peace he had in his life. Her uncle ran out of time and asked Allan for two things. He asks Allan to take care of Lies. She's a good girl, but she's reckless, so he's a bit worried. Allan answers him saying that even if he didn't ask, he would. And the second thing was that he wanted to fight Allan once. Allan accepts the request. He wanted to know if Allan was worthy because he would leave such a special girl with him. Allan's uncle was going to fight not as a corpse, but as a man, as a knight and a father. And then they start fighting. Allan takes it easy on the old man because he's already at the end of his career. The uncle says it's the night of the spirit festival. The living and the dead mingle. It's the dream of just one night. The chance to dance with those who won't come back. Lies watches the whole fight very apprehensively, remembering her past, calling her uncle her father, and saying that he was very strong, wondering if he would protect her from the weird monsters. His uncle told him yes, until the day someone stronger than him came along. Lies begins to cry as she sees Allan and her uncle fighting. And at the end of the fight, it starts to rain. Uncle is on Lies's lap and apologizes to Lies for the whole situation. But at that moment, he was calm. Lies was a real daughter to him, and when Lies called him father, he had to try very hard to hide his joy. He said it was very difficult. Lies tells her uncle that she loves him. Her uncle tells her to be happy. Lies cries a lot. Then, after everything has happened, Allan stares at the horizon, and the leader asks when Allan noticed. Allan answers him by saying that from the beginning, the village was full of dead people, and that he, the village leader, was the one in control. The old man asks if he knew because he didn't do anything. Allan told him that he didn't want to get involved. The dead might live among the living here, but the village was perfectly peaceful. And the leader even says that this old man is a demon. Allan says that to think that every demon is evil would be too simplistic. And at the same moment, several undead begin to rise from the ground. There was no point in Allan thinking like that at the time. The demon disguised as an old man says that Allan would be a great pawn and tells Allan to surrender to his power. Allan simply reaches out his hand and clasps it, breaking the demon's magic. And then he takes his sword and throws the skill at the demon, cutting it in half along with the undead. And so all the creatures disappear after he casts his ability. We then see the demon talking to the patriarch of the Westfeld family. Allan's brother, Brett, is annoyed, and his father says that letting a little girl escape wouldn't interfere with their plans. The archbishop's head was already in their hands. Meanwhile, Lies was in the carriage with Beatrice and Allan. Beatrice asked if she was all right, and Lies said yes. Beatrice said that as a knight, she would always be by his side. Lies says thank you. Allan looks at the crystal he brought back when he defeated the demon, and he knows it belonged to his brother, Brett, thinking that the only real part of Alfred was his head. And he also thinks of the general that the head was missing. Then Lies receives a call saying that General Cyril has returned.